was the first one we saw this year? That was like
Oh, yeah, I never watched that one.
Nice Swim.
Yeah. The pool.
You're good. But yeah, totally. Oh,
Never
awesome.
Forget that.
No, never forget to swim.
I'm trying.
What we were like, what's it called? Evil Pool?
Me. That's what I was thinking.
Basically.
Yeah, Evil Pool.
Deadpool. That's what it is. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Deadpool.
there
Right.
you
Oh, right.
go.
Of course. There were 2 Deadpool movies this
There
year.
were 2 Deadpool movies.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for all things scary and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone.
We haven't really referenced our lenses that much recently, but
Oh,
I
we
do like
haven't,
yours.
and boy, have I needed to have them because the blue light is real, and a girl's getting old, so I got to keep the glasses on. You know what I mean? But it's a super exciting time today. Yes, Halloween has passed, but you know what? We keep the party going. And today we are talking about the 1988 supernatural slasher movie, Child's Play.
Wanna play?
I'm Chucky. Want a hug? I am so excited to talk about this, mostly because this is a movie that absolutely scarred me for life, but we'll get into it when we get into all of our likes and gripes. But Child's Play was directed by Tom Holland, a different Tom Holland, and it was written. You just have
Not
to make
related
sure
to
for
Spider-Man.
people. Not Zendaya's boyfriend, which I will now reference him as, but a different Tom Holland. And it was written by Don Mancini and John Lafia. And it stars Catherine Hicks, Chris Sarandon, and Brad Dourif as the voice of Chucky. Now, heavy spoilers, if you have not watched Child's Play, you're about 35 years too late, but it's okay. Stream it and then listen to what we feel about it. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. And Jamie, please hit us with some of those trigger warnings before we get started.
Sure. I'm going to start out hot and say child abuse.
That's real. Absolutely.
Child abuse, references to voodoo, and wanting to do electroshock therapy on a child. And good old insides on the outsides. Not like too aggressively, but like it's a slasher. So like, you know, there is slashing that's happening.
And wild language by a doll.
Wild language and very quotable things too. I'm sure, Brian, you have a list of nice quotes.
I got two that like are true gems forever.
Okay, fantastic. Love it. Any more, Jamie?
You know, minor
Sexual assault.
Yes.
Oh, I think I blocked that out of my mind.
Yeah. Because God forbid a woman in the 80s can walk into an alley to talk to a homeless man and not be assaulted.
I was like, no, that seems really weird. And then I just
that's like anyway, we'll get into that.
We'll get into it. But before we get started on everything, if you're watching on our YouTube, you're seeing another person, and I'm sure you're like, oh my gosh, who is this amazing person with us? Well, producer Brian is going to introduce our special guest for today.
Yes, absolutely. You may know BriHeartsHorror from social media, TikTok, Instagram. Well, she is here today, and we are absolutely thrilled. Bri, thank you so much for joining us for talking Chucky and Child's Play, because I know how much from social media you love.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Before we get into Charles and all of his shenanigans, you know, I really, 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 really like your content. I think your ability to just like talk about your opinions and interact with your community that you've built is like unmatched by a lot of people. So I'm so happy you're here to talk about this with us. But I know you talk a lot about your first horror loves on social media. All of Bri's stuff is in the description of this episode if you wanted to follow her and all that fun stuff. But talk to us a little bit about kind of like not only your love for horror and where it kind of sprung from, but also like how Chucky and Child's Play kind of fit into
Yeah.
it, if you wouldn't mind.
I always kind of say I kind of got into horror from a combination of things. Like my sister's 7 years older than me. She was like super into horror, and this was like the 90s, so she had VHSs of like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, like the first 3 at the time, and I kind of would basically want to be around her all the time, so I was trying to watch them with her. But when I was really young, it was really scary, but I was always still kind of like fascinated by it, even though I was scared of it. And then as I kind of got a little bit older, I was getting less scared. And then once I was around like high school age, I started getting interested in like the history of the genre and just learning more about that. And so I kind of gained an appreciation for the genre as a whole, as well as movies. And then with Chucky, like Chucky's kind of always been in my life a little bit since I was really little, because my grandma had this doll. It wasn't quite like a Chucky doll, but it was kind of like a ripoff of one. So it looked a lot like him, but it wasn't that brand of doll. And
Yikes.
Yeah.
A kind of
like,
good guy doll.
My grandma, she's great, but she would always try to scare me and my little cousins. And so she would like have the doll sitting somewhere. And even though I knew it wasn't like Chucky, it looked so much like him. It had the red hair and everything. And so I was always kind of scared of him for a really long time. And then as I got older, I just found Chucky to be more like funny than scary. And I've said this a couple times on TikTok too, like with the TV show, when I found out that was happening, I decided like I wanted to watch all of the movies in the franchise for the first time, because at the time, the only 2 I hadn't seen were Cult of Chucky and Curse of Chucky. So before the show came out, I watched all of the movies back to back, and I watched a lot of like behind the scenes stuff. And then I watched the show, of course, and all of that over the last couple of years has kind of just like made me really like love and appreciate that franchise, just because of the films themselves, but also like people behind the films, and like Brad Dourif being with this same character for so many years, and Jennifer Tilly and all this stuff. It just seems like the cast and the crew on the films like really care about each other, and that just makes me like appreciate those a lot more.
Totally.
Yeah, that is amazing. 2 things. First off, if I ever had a lineage of children and became a grandmother, I would absolutely be that grandmother who would be hiding things and scaring my grandkids. But 2, I don't know if this is an old documentary, but I just saw on Shudder that there was a Chucky doc. Is that new?
I believe it's new. I haven't watched it yet, but I did also see a clip from that on TikTok today of Jennifer Tilly talking about that. So I'm pretty sure it's newer.
Yes.
Yeah, Nikisha. Okay. Yeah, Doc of Chucky came out like pretty recently. Spoiler alert, that's my suggestion. I have not watched it, but Jamie and I literally like September into October binged all the Child's Play movies for the first time ever. I had never even seen them. So like we'll talk about that here too. But yeah, I love a good chain that are actually sequels to each other.
Yeah.
That like actually take off where the last one let off. Like what a delight, because I earlier this year or late last year I watched Friday the 13th franchise for the first time, and their sequels too. I didn't know. It was great. Anyway,
well, when you have the Halloween like mix and match, it's nice when you get into
which we just did.
We're also just watching Halloween weekend. He hadn't watched. I
hadn't seen 4, 5, 6, H2O, or Resurrection, so we just watched them last week. And what a fucking roller coaster! Those people had no idea what to do with Michael Myers, and that's kind of the charm of it all. Anyway, so before we get started on Chucky and all that fun stuff, 2 questions for you. One, give us a slew of your favorite horror movies so we kind of can give context to all this. And 2, do you have favorites from this year, 2024 so far?
Yeah. So my favorites of like all time, Scream is definitely my favorite horror movie of all time in general. I also really love Silence of the Lambs, The Shining. My favorite Child's Play movie is Child's Play 2. That's my favorite of the whole franchise. I've always loved that one, even when I was younger. And then my favorites of this year, right now, my favorite of the year, and I don't know if it's going to change or not, but it's The Substance. Love that movie.
Just watched it.
So good. We're doing it next week. Yeah. If you're free next
It's
Monday,
so
come
good.
back on. Seriously,
Oh,
we're
yeah,
talking
Chucky
The
is amazing.
Substance.
I loved it. I also really liked just more of the fun ones this year, like Lisa Frankenstein, Abigail. I liked Longlegs. So, I mean, I really haven't been super disappointed this year. I feel like mostly everything I've watched, I've enjoyed to some extent.
Yeah,
Nice.
definitely. No, I agree. I think that this year's movies have definitely skewed towards like fun and good, minus like what they done. What was the first one we saw this year that was like, oh no,
Yeah, I never watched that one.
Night Swim.
Yeah. The pool.
You're good. But yeah, totally. Oh,
Never
awesome.
forget that.
No, never forget the swim.
I'm trying.
What we were like, what's it called? Evil Pool?
Me. That's what I was thinking.
Basically.
Yeah, Evil Pool.
Deadpool. That's what it is. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Deadpool. Right.
there
Oh,
you
right.
go.
Of course. There were 2 Deadpool movies this
There
year.
were 2 Deadpool movies.
Cool. So, yeah, let's get started. I guess let's do the 2-minute summary, right? That's what comes next, Nikisha?
Yeah, unless you guys have something that you watched that you wanted to discuss, but other than that, we can get into it.
We watched The
just the Halloween
Substance.
movies and The Substance.
Oh, I watched Don't
I-
Move.
Oh, right. Oh, you also watched what's the one? Elevation?
Elevation.
Oh,
and
yeah,
Overlord.
Overlord's a good one.
Mm.
Overlord's really good. I had seen it a long time ago, but I didn't remember much about it. That's my shout out for the episode. If you haven't seen Overlord, I think it's streaming on Prime or Paramount Plus. I don't remember where I watched it, but damn, it's a good war movie. It's a good horror movie. It's a good zombie adjacent movie. It's a good like, oh shit, this person's in it type of movie. Like it's really, really good. Elevation, I love post-apocalyptic movies, so I dug Elevation. It's not going to be everybody's taste, and the last 20 minutes are fucking buck wild, and I need a sequel to it because I need to find out what happens. Like everyone, if you're listening to this, go see Elevation because I need a sequel to it. That's not even a joke. That's not like
movie.
Totally. I got an early screener of it, and like I need a sequel. It's so stupid, but I like really want a sequel to it. And then Don't Move got the job done. It was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched
Did you
it
see
like
it,
last
Bree?
week. I thought it was like it was okay. It was okay enough.
Yeah. It was fine. Yeah. And then we watched all of the Michael Myers movies. The only ones I haven't seen are the Rob Zombie ones, so that's what I have to do.
Oh, okay. Are you gonna watch them, or are you just gonna?
Yeah. No, I'll finish out that chain, and then we'll go on to the only one we have to finish is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just
Yeah.
all the
yeah.
Dream Baby.
Those get a little
babies
crazy.
ones. Those middle
Dream
ones
Child,
we have to
Dream
watch.
Team.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
a
yeah,
lot.
Jamie, you were saying something about The Substance.
It was great. I don't know what else I was gonna say.
Oh, so good.
You know,
yeah,
well,
so-
we'll talk about it when we talk about
Well,
it.
next week.
Yeah.
Next week is our Substance episode. So if you're listening to this one, next week we're going to break down The Substance, and there's a lot of that we're going to have to talk about in the brain section there. But cool.
Yes.
Also, hi everybody. If you're watching on YouTube, hi YouTube.
What's up?
You can follow us wherever you follow social media people. That's at Talk Horror Pod. You can find us wherever you TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, or whatever. You can find us there, and of course, BriHeartsHorror. You can find on all of those as well. So definitely just follow her first, and then you can find us. That's fine.
Yes.
But yeah, cool. All right, Nikisha, let's do this.
What's the plot?
All right, so we need a 2-minute plot summary of Child's Play, and our guest of honor, Bree, is going to do that. Jamie is going to time you, Bree. Take your time. You know, producer Brian likes to get into the nitty gritty of the first 10 minutes before he gets into the rest of the movie. So whatever you do is going to be fantastic. But Jamie will also give you a 30-second countdown, or
I'll give you a 1-minute warning and then a 30 seconds and then countdown from 10. Cool.
but you got
All
it.
right. So yeah, I believe in you.
Yes.
You got this. All right. Ready? Steady?
Okay, so
go.
Child's Play is about a little 6-year-old boy named Andy. He lives with his single mom in Chicago, and for his birthday, he really wants this little redheaded doll called a good guy doll. His mom initially can't afford it because she's a single mom, but then she ends up finding one in an alley from kind of a sketchy person, and then takes it home to him, and everything seems great. But what he doesn't know and what she doesn't know is that the doll has now been possessed by the spirit of a serial killer named Charles Lee Ray, or Chucky. And because Andy is the first one that Chucky kind of reveals himself to, he now has to transfer his soul into Andy. So he spends like a majority of the movie trying to do that. In the meantime, the people that kind of get in the way, he kills off. And at the same time, like once Andy realizes like who he is and that the doll's, you know, a serial killer, he's trying to like tell the adults in his life, but because he's a kid, of course, they don't believe him. His mom eventually does believe him, but again, because it sounds insane, nobody really believes them. And then there's a cop that gets involved, which happens to be the same cop that kills Charles Lee Ray. And over the course of the movie, like, he does start to believe them, but majority of the people in the movie don't believe them. And so it kind of all, I guess, the climax kind of happens in the apartment towards the end of the movie where the cops are there, the mom's there, Andy's there, and they kill Chucky. Of course, we know Chucky doesn't die. So he's not really dead, but in the end of the movie, he is defeated, technically, for the time being. And yeah, I would say that's kind of the gist of it.
And that's the plot.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's great.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Excellent job. Way better than I ever do. I'd be like,
No, Brian, you
okay.
did a great job.
So then Andy finds the doll, and it's like, okay, your time's up.
Like, and it starts out on a snowy pre-Christmas time. There's a chill in the air.
Yeah, have you ever been to Chicago in the winter in the 80s? Let me tell you about that.
Obsessed. All right, well, let's get into the nitty gritty of all of it with our first segment, likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
Okay, so Brie would love to start. Tell us your likes, your gripes, why this is.
Likes, I would say, I mean, just Brad Dourif. I feel like he's the heart of the entire franchise, and I think, you know, his voice acting is insane. Like, the way that he can play that character, for me, there will be nobody else that can really embody Chucky like he can. Mm-hmm. Also, I think Alex Vincent, I think, who plays Andy, I think he's such a good little child actor, and he's so adorable, like
so good.
Amazing.
Like,
totally,
like a top child performance ever in a horror movie.
I love
by
him,
far.
and I love him in the second movie too. But he's just so adorable, and like I love watching him with Chucky. I also really like the relationship between Andy and his mom, and how she's just, I mean, she's such a good mom. I think it's kind of hinted at. I don't know if it's like flat out said, but like Andy's dad is dead before the movie starts, so she's really just a single mom raising him by herself and struggling, but she does whatever she can to get him this one thing that he wants for his birthday. And so I really kind of hate in the later sequels that she's not present.
They also do her dirty in the later sequels where it's like she was like institutionalized because no one would believe her. Like it just through articles. Wild. And I'm just like, I understand that Catherine Hicks probably didn't want to come back to this franchise because now she's, you know, Mary Camden's mother. But like, come on, like you did her so dirty. Poor Andy, foster family,
military
like,
school.
oh man, that's
oh my god.
And then he's a psycho in a cabin. Like, come on, people.
But yeah, I love that relationship. I don't know, like, if I have major gripes. I mean, like, I didn't even think about it other than what you said earlier about, like, that kind of creepy scene in the alley. Like, that is, I guess I don't really think about it because I've seen it so many times now, but that is kind of, like, a weird scene where, like, the guy's, like, trying to assault her.
It's random.
It's a little odd. But yeah.
Yeah, that's my number one gripe. Because, like, half of my brain is like, well, we can just brush it away because it's the 80s, they do gross stuff. But the other half of my brain is like, that was so unnecessary for that scene. Like, just like talk to the guy. Like that, the alley's already scary. Like, and I understand. Like, there are so many other things that could have brought the cop to that alley to like get them connected. But like, that just felt like I moved past it because like it's 1988. That's what happens in these movies, which is unfortunate. But like, yeah, that's my
But yeah, other than that, I don't know. I think I think it's my third favorite in the franchise altogether, so I really like it. I don't really have any other like major gripes that are coming to mind.
Yeah. What's the so you said Child's Play 2 is your number 1.
Bride of
what's
Chucky.
your number 2?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Oh my
We
gosh.
gotta have Jennifer in there. She's just fantastic.
Love her.
In the
Iconic.
series. Which is really why I want to watch that doc too, because I mean,
Sure.
just her doing anything, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to piggyback off of what you mentioned about your introduction into horror, Brie, because I have a half sister who's 6 years older than me, and she introduced me to a lot of horror movies, and Chucky was one of them. And because I wanted to be around her and be with all her cool friends, I was like, yeah, I'll sit here and watch this killer doll movie. It's great. And the way that I just had to tell my parents to get rid of any doll that I had because I was so scarred, and I will never forget. There was one morning I woke up and there was a porcelain doll that I had that was just facing me, and I immediately was like, burn the place down. I'm not living here anymore. Like, absolutely not. Just because of those movies. So it was really interesting. I think this is the first time in a long time that I sat and watched the movie again all the way through. So there was a lot of parts that I definitely forgot about in the series. And I also just forgot about the rules of everything. But I felt like in my likes that it really kind of held up, and we love rules on this podcast. So it's like,
get ready for the substance episode because we love rules.
Because we love rules.
We love rules here.
Detail it to me. So the fact that like we know how he got in the body, and the whole idea of the longer you stay in the doll, the more you become human. I'm like, love that. Absolutely. And then like, how do you kill it? Kill it by the heart. Okay, fine, great. Or, you know, put your body into your spirit into another person, the first person who you revealed that you were a human to, which I was like, yes, this is all great. So I just love how all of that still like held up, and there was no real questions about that. I will say, speaking on the child too, I loved his relationship with his mom, but I loved how much emotional intelligence this child had as a 6-year-old. Because there was one scene after Maggie, the friend who is my favorite in this entire movie. I love the friend Maggie. I'm so sad that she was only there for like 10 minutes, but she was yelling at him about the doll. The mom was yelling at Andy about the doll, and Andy was like, "Mom, are you yelling at me because of what happened to Maggie?" And I'm like, "Oh, this poor kid."
Yeah.
But I loved that he was smart enough to think like, I know you're not yelling at me, Mom, because I know what our relationship is, and I know that this is not normal, but something abnormal has happened, and so like this is why you're reacting this way. And I will say that Andy to me is one of the smartest horror movie characters, because the way he was dodging and ditching Chucky was fantastic.
Very nimble for a 6-year-old.
I mean, truly, for a 6-year-old, he's like, when he was in the hospital and he knew that Chucky was coming, and so he like hid the pillow underneath the bed. Who thinks of that at 6 years old? You know, it's like this is great. But I didn't really have much gripes. It was mostly just like, why'd they put that boy in a little prison? Like, what is this mental institution?
Why did they put that little boy in a prison?
That's literally what I put in my notes. Why did they put that little boy in this prison? And the detectives like had no fucking bedside manner. Like the fact that like Maggie is dead and they're just trying, I know they're trying to get to the bottom of it, but how they were talking to the mom was just kind of like, she lost her friend, y'all, and in her own house. And y'all are just, you know.
Also how they're talking to Andy. They're like, can you just like show us your feet really quick? And like, why is this 6-year-old in an active crime scene that you're interviewing? Like, it's so absurd.
It's so absurd.
Well, like, even, oh my God, this kid is so traumatized.
So traumatized. And already, he's already dealing with like this psycho killer in his ear. And then, you know, but what was also absurd, Jamie, to your point of that too, was when the mom was just running through the whole crime scene outside and then got upstairs and nobody stopped her until she got to her door.
Yeah.
Nobody is stopping you. Like, this is an active investigation. Like, no one's asking, like, what are you doing? What, you know? So I thought that was pretty, like, okay. I love the point of view shots of Chucky, like, running around. I thought that those were excellent.
So good.
So good. Also, that little doll is so fast. I laugh every time. He is. Like, truly, he's just like huffing it. All right. But and it makes me laugh because I think it's on TikTok, but where you can blindly rate the killers that you feel like you could beat, like from like 1 to 10, and everyone's like, "Yeah, I could beat Chucky," and I'm like, after watching the first one, I'm like, "Hold up," because he's a little too fast,
and he's
faster
strong
than all the other people, and this is
yeah,
and he's strong,
yeah,
and he knows
I
voodoo.
feel like he can give people, I mean, and does voodoo.
Oh yeah,
He can give people a run for their money. So
Literally.
I thought that was hilarious. And of course, we have to talk about like the actual doll itself and the animatronics, and it's just for 1988. Like, I need to watch documentaries about this because I just want to see. And I've seen clips of just like the different faces that they had for him and the different things that they used and all that stuff. But I just thought it was so beautifully crafted. Like, shout out to everyone who dealt with making the doll. I thought the melted Chucky was so good at the end. It was, and it still holds up as so super creepy. Like, I know I'm dealing with my own like child trauma from it, but even watching it again, I'm like, oh, this is so icky.
Yeah.
This is, ugh, I can't with dolls. But yeah, I really enjoyed watching it this go around, and I thought it was just absolutely great. So, and the acting, of course, was great too with Andy, especially because him crying in that little prison cell. I just wanted to give him a hug.
Oh.
So good. And the last thing I'll say is, and this is for everyone, and Jamie and Brian, now that y'all are new parents, listen, kids do not want clothes for Christmas. So stop making these big old boxes full of clothes because they don't give them a toy. Kids want toys.
Well,
not anything else.
Listen,
birthdays.
In this house, no Ouija boards and no Chucky dolls.
And no
like
Chucky
the
dolls,
closest is Funko Pop. Like, no good guy dolls, no Ouija boards. Like, I've watched too many movies where Ouija boards have opened up something that I don't need in my house. Like,
absolutely.
I'm not saying that I like also like I am not a Micah, so like I'm not gonna like bring one into the house and like be a fucking asshole. Like, I am standing by the door and like this is not allowed in our home. That's and the good guy dolls.
Okay, what if though, like, I got a onesie that had like Chucky on, like the doll on it? Like, would you take
cute.
that?
That's cute. Yeah.
Okay, great. Christmas ideas.
No,
it's coming
fine.
up. So
I was gonna say I actually have a Chucky doll that's in my room every single night.
Ooh,
it does.
Keeps you company.
It sits like
comforting.
directly across my bed, so it kind of like stares at me while I sleep.
I couldn't do that. Like, that's amazing. You have a much you're made of steel that I don't have. No.
Anyone could have
Absolutely
that
not.
or any of like the life size.
That creeps me out.
In their
I don't know if I could do that. The big ones.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's insane. Nope. But yeah, those are my likes and gripes. Brian, Jamie.
Sure, I'll go. So I have seen Chucky before. I didn't watch it when I was a kid, though. I think because I was freaked out by it as a former giant baby when it came to horror movies. So It took a while before I ever watched this one. But I will also share that I had like not a fully life-size doll, but like a doll that kind of was the size of Chucky as a kid. It didn't look like Chucky at all. But it had like one of those like it had the same kind of face where it was just like permanent creepy smile. And I remember playing with it a lot when I was a kid and like playing dentist with it. And then I think that I had an idea in my head that like maybe I fucked around with it too much playing like I didn't like the dentist. So then I was like, oh, I'm like I'm doing something mean to it by like playing like pretend in a way that it didn't like. And then I have a nightmare that night that it was chasing me down the hallway trying to kill me. And the next day I was like, this doll has to go, get it out of the house. I literally was I dragged it to the garage and I was like, I never want to see this doll ever again. And I was like, I don't know, I had to be like 10 or 11, but I was like, no, we're done here. Like it's gone forever.
I'm
so
just
that was
obsessed with
horrifying.
Your idea of playing was like a dentist.
Hey, I'm an only child. You know, I had to keep it creative. I had like pencils, and I was like stabbing its mouth and stuff. And I was like, oh, time for the drill. So that's why I was like, oh, maybe this doll's gonna like attack me and try to murder me because it thinks I'm trying to murder it. I don't know. Every man for themselves. It had to go so that I could survive. So. So I've seen it. I tried to watch the reboot kind of soon after, but I actually didn't get through the reboot because it's just not the same. Like it was like really hard to get through, but it wasn't giving the same like fun campy energy that I feel like this one does. And on this rewatch, I really had such a fun time. Like this chain is really fun, and I agree with what everyone said. Andy's adorable. Like he's so compelling when the crying scene, like I think I did cry because it's so believable. He's so endearing. And I love hate the trope of kids not being believed. It makes me very upset. So I just like have a hard time when he's like pouring his heart out and everyone's just like, no one cares. Also a side note, I recently watched the OG Fright Night for the first time, and that's the detective is also in that, just FYI. So in other horror adjacent stuff, which I thought was cool. And I think he does like a good job at, you know, playing the ruthless cop who's like chasing after the murderer. It's like it's you know, it's like that gritty kind of performance. And it's believable, so I'm into it.
And you trust him enough. Like he balances like the trust of like he'll eventually believe them. Like,
yeah, it's like the initial
like...
skepticism that you're getting that like that makes sense, and then he has his run-in with Chucky, and it's just like what, like just the convincing I think happens in a quick enough way where it's not this like elongated like, all right, like no one's gonna believe you. Like it does, the pacing I think is pretty good because like obviously the idea of believing that the doll is trying to kill you is pretty far-fetched, and so like figuring out how they're going to get us to the point where like everyone's on board with this. I think it doesn't take too long, and we get enough like interactions with Chucky with other adults to believe it, but it's still the same, like every first interaction it's not going to be believed. And so like I'm glad that they kind of limit it to that only happens so many times. If it keeps going on and on, it's like, all right, we get it, he's a doll but he's also a murderer, like come on people, let's
get to it.
So I think they do it enough times where it doesn't really get like tiring, and it's still like when's he gonna pop out and like be scary to them. When the battery scene I think is really good at like building tension, because like you don't really even think about it, like you just assume that, you know, he already has the batteries, and so like I think that was a really nice surprise to kind of like demonstrate like like something's really wrong here. And Catherine Hicks I think does a really good job at like being horrified in that scene, and kind of like coming to her senses. And I'm trying to think if there's any other gripe. Also agree, Brad Dourif is really great. Watching the whole chain, I'm trying to remember which one. Is it not Cult of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, when you see him as an adult at one point, like towards the end of the film, and I was like, he's aged. So it's just really funny that like they just had him there, and I was like, right,
because Curse is the one with the like family videos where like he's at the barbecue in his Hawaiian shirt or whatever it is. They like retcon the whole like how this movie starts.
And I was like, oh, that's like funny because you do see him at the beginning of this movie. If we never saw him, it's like maybe, but like they, you know, we get a little bit of him in live action, so it's funny that like they go in that direction for like a second, and then I'm glad that they moved past that. I don't really. I think so I'm kind of torn because I really like the fact that this is a completely original idea for like a new slasher franchise. But there is something underlying about like the voodoo of it all that does kind of make me feel weird. And like that's my only gripe. I'm just like, why is it
Why
voodoo?
add that element?
I know that
to
that's really
it,
the
yeah.
only way that this probably can actually work, is like, trying to make it as realistic as a doll that becomes alive as possible.
For sure.
But it's just interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
And so
You
like
want
that
voodoo? Watch
That's a good
Skeleton.
one. I love that movie.
Right.
Oh God, that movie also upsets me. But yeah, and then like obviously hospitalizing a 6-year-old is not great, Bob, and that just also makes me deeply, deeply sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
Oh my God. All right,
Yeah.
Producer Brian.
Sure. Just as a reminder, this was only my second time watching it, but like my first time was like a month ago. So so this is from a person who has no nostalgia, like a 38-year-old who has no nostalgia for this thing. Like so I did not these are all my likes. I did not expect this movie to be as insane as it is up front. And I mean that in the best way possible. Because usually franchises like this get crazy by the third and fourth one. The first one's like a totally normal, like whatever. But this one from get-go is just like fucking crazy. Like, and the amount of insanity they pack into like 87 minutes is truly incredible. Like, the rules, we talked about that. The rules are amazing. I was just like pleasantly surprised by just how unhinged this one is to start. I thought all the acting was really good, as we've talked about. It never slows down. It clips along. Like Jamie said, the pacing is great. Brad Dourif is iconic. The reveal in front of the fireplace is fucking hilarious.
Love that
And
scene.
Absolutely.
It's so good, but it's also not, it's not just the fireplace scene. It's also the silly roll he does to get under the couch. Like it's all of those things. Like he like goes on the ground, like clearly I've never seen behind the scenes of this, but clearly like someone's like pulling him or like, like or whatever it is. But it's just so funny to me, and it's so delightful in the most unhinged way. And it's interesting. This movie isn't scary for me per se, like now, but it instills a fear. Like I never felt like jump scared or like scared of Chucky per se, but like there's this underlying dread and fear that like it gets you that a lot of other horror movies like just don't do. It's like reverse Toy Story. Or I guess Toy Story.
Reverse Toy Story.
Technically Toy Story is reverse Chucky, I guess. Child's Play.
Yeah.
Oh
my God.
But
that's
the
fantastic.
rules are laid out perfectly, and they're given to you in like revealed in the perfect way, organically. I mean, exposition was really good in this movie in general. The to me, the most insane thing about this movie is that he goes out of his way as the Chucky doll to visit his voodoo instructor. that's when I was like that was the thing that pushed us over the edge for me in the best way. I mean that in like truly the best way possible. I was like, wait, what? Like,
and
okay,
then kills
sure,
him with
that's
his own
fine.
voodoo.
Yeah, with the voodoo doll. It's like this is a scene. This is a scene from like a fourth or fifth movie in a franchise in the first one.
Fair,
and I was like,
fair.
I think just like great. Jamie mentioned it a little bit with like his, or maybe Nikisha, I don't remember who did, but just Andy's empathy and his ability to like read the situation pretty well. I just thought the balance of insanity and people actually doing people things in this movie, peopling a lot. Like I actually thought this movie was pretty grounded, mostly in what like people reacting to things. Like obviously some of the plot points are insane, but like I thought like people's reaction, especially Andy, the mom, even the cop in places, felt realistic. Yeah, and I just this movie was great. And as somebody who had never seen this movie absolutely made me want to watch the second one, and the second one absolutely made me want to watch the third one. And then the third one's one of my least favorite ones. But it still has amazing moments, and knowing that the next one is Bride of Chucky, which I like. That's my number one. My number two is Child's Play 2, and my number 3 is this one. Like and then just like they just fucking pull the ripcord and they're like, let's go. My gripe about this movie is both a like and a gripe. We talked about the other ones, the assault in the alley. Yeah, all that stuff. A little, what did you say? Little boy in a prison.
Yes, put that little boy in a prison.
I think that the best friend, what's her name,
Mhm.
Maggie? Is that Maggie's
Yes.
death is so over the top for
It
what she
is.
actually deserved. Like she gets hit in a hammer, goes out the window, and then hits a car, and her death is like the poster in a lot of scenarios. Like
Mhm.
she did not. She wasn't like this monstrous person who just like that was like the death of like the main villain at the end of like a James Bond movie.
Yeah, agreed.
Like or like in Jurassic World, the like assistant who gets like picked up by a pterodactyl and then dropped into like the tank and eat like all of that is just like way too much for what she deserved as a death. But also the death is iconic and insane. Like, and that's what makes
Yes.
this movie itself. So those are my likes and gripes of like that one moment. But like it probably leans more towards like than gripe. And then the two quotes.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
I just want to say with that scene, when it happened, I absolutely had an out loud laughter just because,
Yeah.
like, she gets one ding in the head by the hammer, and it's just this whole like falling
So good.
and
That's
tripping
really
over
good.
things.
That's good
That's
falling
literally,
acting. Yeah.
hilarious. And
Excellent
then it's out the
falling.
window. It's like
Out the window.
girl,
Listen,
please.
my two favorite Chicago slasher films, Candyman and this, both have weird window scenes. What's up with Chicago and weird windows?
I never thought about that.
Who knows? Well, you know, they at the theater in Chicago, they say the alleyway is haunted because there was a fire in the theater and people were jumping out of the windows. Like that is a thing. So maybe it's, you know,
maybe
call back to some
the
real
Great
life
Fire
things.
like made
Yeah.
like maybe that's just like inherently in a Chicago like culture and lore that we just don't know about.
Right, exactly.
That's
I would like to think
interesting.
so.
Us obnoxious East Coasters, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, great. Windows. Chicago windows, check.
Chicago windows. Okay, you were gonna give your two quotes.
Oh, my two quotes.
Yes.
Obviously, the quote of this movie, the fireplace reveal, you stupid bitch, you filthy slut, I'll
Yes.
teach you to fuck with me, is just like, what the fuck are we doing
Love
here?
it.
He's like
amazing.
squirming.
And he's like squirming and his head turns around. It was
Bites
amazing.
her.
It's truly the best.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
and then he scurries away like a fucking
rat.
like raccoon. Yeah, totally. And the saddest line in this movie by far is when Andy says his real name is Charles Lee Ray and he's been sent down from heaven by Daddy to play with me. I was like, oh fuck. Like-
Insane.
Like Chucky's got tactics. Like
Wow.
he knows exactly how to pull the strings of these little kids. Like this little kid, what's the is it
Oh, and the
Curse?
third
Oh.
one?
Oh, the third
Oh,
one
yeah.
with the little boy at the military academy who's like also deeply lonely. And then you have the little niece
name's
in
Alice,
Curse of
I wanna say.
Chucky.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, uh-huh. Like
Mhm.
I never doubt his ability to manipulate these little kids into like liking him, just playing on their loneliness. And it works every time. It works every single time. And it definitely worked
Wow.
in this one. It was so
Well, plus
sad.
I mean, not just him, but also Tiffany, but they both manipulate their child in Seethe of Chucky to start killing.
Mm.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Excellent point. Yeah.
Oh my god, Brian, I thought you were going to say the quote that Andy says about
Yes.
Maggie, the
I
friend.
know, yeah.
Oh.
She was a bitch and she deserved it.
Yeah, that one.
I
Yes.
love that line just because it's coming out of like the cutest little kid's voice and like his little face, and he doesn't mean it to be like
Yes.
hateful, but he's just literally quoting what Chucky said. I love that part.
Yes.
Mhm.
He literally just like,
Yeah.
this is what he said, Mom. I'm just letting you know. Like,
It's
oh
a great
god,
Andy has a great delivery system.
absolutely agreed.
This poor kid.
Anything else we want to add before we move on to our next section?
I don't know if we just one last thing. I don't know if we said this and maybe we did, but like the animatronic is perfect. Like
Yes.
it
The visual
holds up
effects are-
so like all of them, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about practical effects like all the time and how much we love them, and like they really did an excellent job between like they had they had like people in the Chucky costume.
Right.
They had like a variety of dolls. They had the face, I think, was like controlled via remote. So they just, and then like as he was slowly turning human, the like hairline is changing. Like there's just so many elements that they were really thoughtful about this, and that I think is what makes it, like, if this was, I guess, more contemporary and it was made with more CGI, like I don't think this would really be watchable. I mean, that might be part of why I didn't finish the reboot, because I think like I just think the practical effects like make it feel more campy and homey in a way that like I'm more willing to engage with this, and it feels more real when it's like actually a doll that you were watching versus like some weird, I don't know, goopy sack of meat that's chasing you around.
And I'm sure it's
a weird soupy,
a goopy sack of meat.
But I'm sure it was also easier for the actors too to actually have a physical thing in front of them as opposed to
and like
know,
shaking
CGI.
and like messing around with. Yeah,
right. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Oh, so good. Now, I mean, and to your point too, Brian, I absolutely want to watch. Like, I almost was like, I just want to watch the opening of the second one, but I didn't have time because I literally finished it like 15 minutes before we started the podcast.
The second one makes no fucking... The brilliance of all these movies is the first 5 minutes make no fucking sense in terms of how they bring him back, but it doesn't matter because they just get right into it. They're like... Because in the second one, like, they find him and like they just like bring him back to life at the factory, right?
Yeah,
That's
they like clean him up and then they go to like turn on the electricity, but they all get electrocuted.
Yeah. Is the second one or the third one opening with the toy executive in his apartment?
I think so.
I think that's the third one because the CEO gets murdered.
Yeah, that's.
But also, shout out to the title card of Seed of Chucky because I had a thought of where it was going to go, and then they actually commit to little sperms in the beginning, and that shocked me. I was like, oh, that would be funny, and then they did it, and I was like, oh my god, like nobody else would ever do anything like that, and like I can really appreciate that they just went there. That movie's off the rails, but that rates way more highly than I feel like it should because it's so meta and truly absurd, but I love the meta of it. It feels kind of like its version of Scream.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's so it's buck wild, but man, that one.
Yeah, I definitely gotta finish watching it because I feel like I've only seen just bits and pieces of 2 and 3, but I definitely did watch like Cult and Curse, and I did watch the Aubrey Plaza remake, and that doll was insane.
And aside from reading, we have not seen the TV show at all.
Yeah,
no,
right?
Not yet.
Yeah. We're definitely gonna do that. We'll binge it enough so that when they finally bring it back somewhere else, we'll be able to continue.
Which hopefully that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's what, 3 seasons?
And I was gonna say the show really dives more into Chucky and Tiffany's backstory, and I like that they have Brad Dourif's daughter play a younger version of him, and she looks terrifyingly like him. So they don't have to like de-age Brad Dourif again. They can just have her do it, and it's really, really cool.
Wait,
that's awesome.
Fiona, like the same character, is a different daughter,
it's the
or
same.
the same?
She plays like
daughter
Nika, but like when they do flashbacks of Chucky, like in the 80s or even earlier, they use her and they dress her up to look like him, and it's really
that's
really
awesome.
That's so smart.
Oh, I love that.
Her dad as Chucky.
She's really good at the end of what is it, Cult?
Like
her taking on his identity. It's like it's eerily spot on, and it's also fun that it's like in the family. This franchise, like truly, this chain has grown on me in a way that I was not expecting when we started to binge all of them, and I get it. Like I truly get it. And like I'm all in on this little weirdo. So I brought the doll. Just kidding.
I could have brought my doll in here if I thought about it.
Brian would
another like video window pops up and he's just like sitting there watching.
Yikes.
Yeah. I was like, well, we have a 5th person today. It's Chucky.
Leave room.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's fantastic. All right. Well, let's get into our next segment. Brains.
Brains.
Tasty. Okay, so I don't know if a lot of people know, but we have 2 therapists now because Marie is a mental health professional, which is super exciting because we just found this out before we started recording. So this is super exciting. So any questions that I ask, please feel free to chime in, Bree, on your thoughts about everything. So my first question,
to be clear, I am not the therapist.
No.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Yes. Like, we will not be speaking on these matters. No thanks. So my first question has to deal with only childs and their need for companionship. And I just wanted to ask, do you find that being an only child can delay some kind of social developments? Because I know a lot of times people like to speak on the only child and since they don't have, people around them, that how they grow up could be different, or how they develop could possibly be different. I mean, that's in quotes. I mean, that's just, a stereotype, if you will, that people will say about only child. So I just wanted to ask you guys thoughts about that.
So I work at a middle school right now. So I'm a mental health counselor in a middle school. And I would say, I definitely think it's a little different if you grow up as an only child, and it's not something I can relate to because I do have a sister, but I feel like there are some things that as an only child, I would imagine you don't obviously get to experience if you have even one other sibling. And so sometimes some things I'll see, especially with incoming 6th graders who are freshly, they're either 10 or freshly 11, if they don't necessarily have siblings, sometimes it's harder for them to even do something as simple as sharing something or understanding how you have to work with people when you can't always kind of be by yourself. But it's interesting because I never really thought about that in terms of this movie, Andy being an only child and also losing his dad and then wanting this doll, which this doll is being advertised as your new best friend. And it's a really interesting kind of dynamic that I actually never thought about before. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I do just want to speak. I have a half sister, but I didn't know about her until I was 9, 10 years old, because she lived with her mom and they lived in another state. So she would just come in the summers and visit me during probably for the next 5 or so years. And then she went off to college and it was okay, I'm back on my own. But it is interesting just in you talking about only children not knowing how to deal with people and that they just want to be by themselves because they're used to being by themselves, which I guess is something that I never really truly connected the dots with, because I absolutely love my alone time. Leave me alone. I can figure it out myself. So I think that's a great point you bringing up. It's not just the sharing aspect of it, but maybe it's just the they don't want to be around others, or because they have their own things and their own things that they want to do by themselves. And so it's trying to navigate yes, there are other people in this world and you do have to interact with them. So how can we go about doing those things? So yeah, that's just a good point. Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting also as an only child myself. Hopefully I turned out, okay. But don't tell me if I didn't.
Fantastic.
And I mean, I think that there's always something really interesting about birth order or growing up, as an only child versus are you the oldest or the youngest? How many siblings do you have? And how does that kind of impact your relationships? I think for me, I don't even know if I necessarily love my alone time. And as a kid, I distinctly remember really wanting a sibling, really feeling I was missing that connection with at least one other person. I do my experience was I had cousins, many cousins that I was close-ish in age. And when I was younger, we would spend more time together visiting them. So I feel I got some of those experiences that were helpful, but obviously those were kind of short stints of time. I think more so something that comes up a lot is a fear of entitlement in only children, because they are constantly capturing their parents' attention 100% of the time, and that attention is never split with a sibling. So that's something that I think about a lot of how am I coming across socially, how am I interacting with people? Is there anything that I'm doing that gives people the impression that like I am demanding of their attention or like demanding of their time, and not like being patient or like things like that. So like on a personal level, I think about that a lot in my own social interactions.
And now I will be thinking about that for the rest.
I'm so sorry
my
I planted
social
a seed that that I can't undo.
But that's such a great point. It's like, because you had your parents' attention, it's like how in relation to your friends or your coworkers or whoever that you're around, like, are you expecting that entitlement of their attention? Like, that's
Sure. But it's a blessing and a
excellent.
curse is the other
Yeah.
thing that I think about, because like then there are other times when you're like, don't perceive me, like leave me alone, but you
Yes.
can't avoid it because there's no like buffer, because it's just, you know, the two of you or the three of you.
Right.
So I think about that too. And like with Andy in particular, it's interesting because his mom is a single mom and because they experienced this loss, it's like there's part of me that feels like he understands, like he does have empathy. He has empathy for his mom who's working so hard and is like his only caregiver, that he doesn't seem particularly demanding of her attention. He seems like a kid that like, you know, would like a little bit more, you know, connection, but he's not like overbearing. Even when he gets the clothes, he's not
Right.
like, I needed a doll, you know, like he's not like that type of kid. And I feel like that is also just like, I don't know, there's something again about him that is so like charming but like grounded, that he's not even acting super entitled to begin with. So
Mhm.
And it's so
just really
sweet that he like
interesting.
makes his mom
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah.
like makes his mom the
That he
breakfast
makes
and
his
stuff.
mom.
Like even though it's like a really poorly put together
Yeah.
breakfast,
Oh my
it's really
God.
sweet that he's like
It's
trying
so
to do
gross.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
An example of an only child who like lost a parent that is like
Oh, I know what you're gonna
truly
say.
awful and annoying.
You're talking about the Babadook?
What am I gonna say?
That's what I was thinking about. That kid
No,
scares me.
no, I wasn't. I
Oh.
wasn't, but that's a good one.
Oh, that's a great one.
I was gonna say
Oh, I haven't
Mr.
watched that one
Crockett.
yet.
Oh my God.
Oh, I
That
haven't
kid's the
watched this.
fucking worst, and like Mr. Crockett should have taken him. But,
Absolutely. He did not need to come back.
no,
I
that kid
agree.
was good where he went.
Absolutely.
But the Mr.
Oh,
Robert
the
Duke,
Babadook
that
is
film
so
is a good one.
because it's
Yeah.
also
Mhm.
like grief and that's so yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that poor kid. I think about that kid like once a month and I'm just like, man,
Oh my
they
gosh.
both just needed family
Yes.
therapy like ASAP.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
oh man, that I would.
That's
That's
great.
a great one. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so my next question is, how would you potentially handle kids with active imaginations that could lead into possible harm to themselves or to like the people around him? And just thinking about, like, of course Andy has a possessed doll, and people think it's his imagination, but what if it wasn't, his imagination? Like, how would you go about trying to help a kid who might potentially harm themselves because of their imagination?
That's a good question.
Good question.
Good question. Good question.
I think I guess I would want to, I don't work with kids that young, so it's kind of hard to say with that age, but I guess I would want to kind of just make sure that they understand the line between like reality and imagination, and just, first, I guess if I had a kid like Andy that was telling me these things, like my, I guess, gut reaction would be like, okay, this isn't real. Obviously there's no killer dolls, but also I would, as a therapist, want to listen and empathize and just try to understand from his point of view what he thinks is going on. Just to kind of make him feel validated, because that's kind of what my main goal is when I talk to my kids at school all the time, is just, even if I don't personally, I can't relate to what they're going through or I don't understand, I just want them to feel like, okay, even if she doesn't get it, she's still listening to me and she's still telling me that what I'm saying is important and it matters. So that would kind of be like, I guess, my first reaction or my first response.
Yeah, which I'm sure is so important at that age bracket too. It's just like solidifying, like somebody is listening to you and they are validating like what you're saying. Yeah. Oh, great. Jamie?
Yeah. I also don't work with kids at all, but I mean, I think I definitely agree of like kind of like you want to evaluate and like dig a little bit deeper of like what's going on, especially like depending on like the content of what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's like, where's this coming from? Because like it's obviously it's not coming from him potentially. Like I feel like trying to figure out like what other influences there might be, which also is really crappy because I don't think they go into it in the later films where like he's in foster care, but like that is a reality that I feel like you know would probably be explored more is like this he would probably be evaluated by like child protective workers and like check and ask him like are you safe at home and like what kinds of things are going on because like the things that he's saying are definitely
Oh, yeah.
like big red flags. So I feel like there's the challenge of like asking a kid about their safety without the nuance of like also not indicating that like there is definitively somebody doing something to cause them harm. So like I think that line of questioning, especially also like then kind of changing your language to make sense to someone as young as a 6-year-old is also important because like you're not talking to an adult. It's a very different looking conversation to like talk about safety. So I feel like that would be like really challenging, but like also a piece of it. And then I mean also thinking about like harm reduction. So like maybe some of the things that you're doing or talking about like doesn't always sound great. Or like, does this make you happy? Are you like, are you cool with all of this? Like, are there other things that like do make you feel good that maybe aren't this thing that we could spend more time doing? So like trying to kind of like shift into maybe other behaviors that like they also get something from that would cause them and the others around them less harm.
And also, I guess what I wanted to say too, because my licensure is marriage and family therapist. I don't really do anything with the marriage part, but like family is a big piece of what I do, especially working in schools. So I would also, in this situation, would want to bring in the mom as well too, and kind of talk with her and her perspective. And I think that would be important piece too, especially because Andy is so close to his mom.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is we can fix that.
I think that about so many horror villains. And like, if some of these people just went to therapy, then maybe they would have done something different.
All the time.
All the time. Oh man, I could probably
number one recommendation. I feel like at the end of everything, just go to therapy, but not one of the bad doctors because we do have a list of bad therapists, bad psychiatrists.
Well, speaking of like bad psychiatrists, I do want to ask twofold question. First, just about how you felt about the depiction of the psychiatric facility that they put Andy in, and about the
jail.
I think you mean little boys in prison.
Yes. It looked like a prison. There were bars. Ugh.
Yeah, no,
it hurt. I'm like, this little boy, because he's also just so cute. It's like, why are you putting him in this place? So how you felt about that depiction of that in the movie, but also the psychiatrist just randomly kind of shows up out of nowhere at the police station. And I'm just wondering, is that even legal for them to kind of have that kind of evaluation without consulting the mom beforehand? Because immediately he just makes a decision about Andy and then takes him away from her. So I just wanted to know if you knew anything about that aspect of it.
I don't have a lot of like, or really any experience like with mental health hospitals, because I've never like worked in one or spent much time in them, so I don't know specifically how those work. But what I will say is like a lot of times in horror movies specifically, I feel like they're almost always portrayed to be like these terrifying, horrible places, which kind of sucks because it stigmatizes getting help. And some mental health hospitals obviously are not great necessarily. But yeah, I don't know if I would think, because like, I mean, I have to at my job, like if I have a kid that needs to be like assessed by a hospital, I have to get a parent's consent before I can even call that hospital to come to our school. So I would think like, especially being as young as he is, like 6 years old, that they would need mom's permission, but I don't know. Maybe it just depends if like they feel like he's a great risk to himself. I don't know. It seemed a little off though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, just in the sense of the severity of the situation, that they could kind of override the consent. But I just want to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
Jamie.
understanding is that like they could override the consent again if they feel like it meets that threshold, and like would have to like have very clear evidence of like this child is like actively a threat to his safety or the safety of others, which like they might be able to justify because there have now been like several murders, you know, in and around his vicinity that they think are him. So
But also,
there
Chicago has a lot of window murders, so like, there might be a window serial killer out there.
You never know.
Yeah, I do think that there's like obviously escalations happening in this film that are like the electroshock. Well, I guess that's more of like what's happening to him, and then that ends his life. But you know, the idea of potentially performing that on a 6-year-old is definitely concerning. And even though there are like, you'd be surprised at what type of treatments that like we might find or like sound really scary continue to exist, like ECT. I'm fairly, I am not well versed in it, but I don't think we're doing it to 6-year-olds. There's most of the most of those like more aggressive treatments like are not being done on 6-year-olds. Like we're rarely even like diagnosing 6-year-olds with things. So like that's the likelihood. It would, in all honesty, like really it would just be about safety, and then probably not like appear like a jail. That just is very extreme.
Yeah, for sure. And that just reminds me of the only like kid that we've seen in horror movies that like they immediately put in jail was Michael Myers in that whole situation. And how old was he? Do we remember? No, I mean, he was under 10.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, he is young.
Yeah.
And they put him away for life, or that was the intention anyways. But
right.
Yeah.
The intention. 10 million films later.
Okay, yeah.
He was 6. On the night of Halloween in 1963, 6-year-old Michael Myers brutally stabs teenage sister Judith. Spoiler alert. Judith to death with a chef's knife. Yeah.
But he is pure evil, so you know.
There you go.
And we all know.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yes.
That's what, if we were, yeah.
If we learned anything.
Okay, fantastic. And my last thing, which Brian reminded me of before we started this podcast, we would love to Billy or Stu.
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. It's a scream, baby.
Billy or Stu.
Chucky, which means Billy, from Scream, more on the psychopath train, and then Stu being more on the sociopath train. So which one do we think Chucky is? The psychopath Billy or the sociopath?
I would say after watching the show and getting so much more backstory, because you get a lot, like there's like a whole part of an episode that's just about Chucky's childhood and his first ever kill. I feel like he is just a straight up sociopath. I don't think there's anything that caused him to be that way. I think it's just he was born that way. I mean, just basing it off of the show. So yeah, I would say he's a sociopath just on that alone.
Yeah. I mean, even like not having watched the show, it's just like he's just so all over the place.
Yeah.
My parents are going to be so mad at me.
I think that so many of his crimes in this are like crimes of opportunity. Like he's not planning, he plans a little bit, but like he's really only planning like, I'm going to move my soul into the body of this child. Like that's the extent of his plan. And then chaos ensues. So like I don't think that there's that much thoughtful. I mean, he also like learned voodoo because at one point he knew that he was, I guess, going to be killed. But like, how did he know that? Like, there's just a lot that I feel like is not well planned, thought out, and so like he's just kind of like reacting, I think, in most of the moments, and even in some of the other movies. Like there's definitely a point where he just kind of gives up the idea of putting his soul into any more kids And
yes.
and then at that point, I think he just like kind of goes full blown like sociopathic killer, and he's like achieved this notoriety. So, you know, like he's really leaning into that. Yeah, I agree. I think he's just like a sociopath.
Wait, Brie,
I'm
does
obsessed.
the show go into like why he becomes obsessed or does voodoo?
I
Or not really?
can't remember because like it really does. I think it's mainly the first season or maybe the second and first season, but like there's like basically like a string of episodes where like each episode it goes back in time like to where he's like, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years old, and that's actually, I mean, it's kind of a spoiler but not really, but that's actually when he made his first kill, was when he was that young. And then it shows like how he met Tiffany and how they got together and the kills that they did. So I can't remember. I feel like it does kind of touch on the voodoo part maybe, but I can't remember for sure.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, nice. That's all the questions that I had for you guys. So, Brian, did you have a question?
I have one for you, Nikisha.
Great. Lay it on me.
You're an actress. Like, if you were doing like Chucky the musical and you had to play
That
the
sounds
mother
awesome.
or whatever it is,
Oh no,
Write
I want
this
Chucky the
down.
musical.
Somebody
Sounds
get
awesome.
on it.
Fantastic.
actually, that sounds really fun. The stage magic would be amazing.
Oh
I'll
my
get on
God.
it. I'll get on it.
Thanks. Thank
yeah,
you.
no problem. My question for you is like, you know, obviously to make something that's, you know, you have the special effects, you have the animatronics, obviously, but like in the moment when it's just you and the doll acting, like to make it scary, to have a grounded performance, I guess, like, is there anything that you would do for a moment like that that would differentiate itself from you know, a scene with another person who's actually responding to you?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question because I think it would vary depending on if it was a stage production or if I was like doing a movie of it. Because I think that the stage production, of course, would lend itself to having a physical doll, but also a voice actor. And so I think depending on or leaning on the voice actor would be something that I would like really kind of go for as far as like reacting to what's happening to me on the stage. But I also think in the movie it's really interesting too because they had all the different animatronics that it was easy, and I think it would be especially easy for me because I hate dolls anyway. So
That's true.
just
That's an excellent point.
you know, digging into the Hagen, like, you know, your past traumas and Stanislavski, like your past trauma acting techniques. I would definitely lean on like past traumas of like my hatred for dolls to kind of like lead the way. But it's a great question. And I think it makes it especially hard when there is just CGI and like you see all of the people in movies when they show behind the scenes and it's just a green screen and they're like having to react to all of that. So I really think it also is piercing into your imagination and really just like trying to embody like what would I actually be doing if this was actually happening to me? Not that there would actually be a doll that would be attacking me, but if someone was attacking me, it's the same premise, right? And so just like using that to kind of help navigate the scene and navigate how I would try to act it. I would just think about those things. But
Cool.
Yeah.
Also, so while you were saying that, I was thinking, Child's Play the musical Chucky would be a doll that was done by a puppeteer, but the puppeteer is an actor who is dressed up as Charles Lee Ray from the first scene the whole time. So the actors interfacing with the doll are only paying attention to the doll, but the audience can kind of see the soul of Charles Lee Ray, like with his hand in the puppet and stuff like that. And the Chucky doll has this incredible baritone. Like Chucky's singing is just like this magical baritone voice that like you just like it adds like the charm of like why he's like this male siren that's like very infectious to the kids or whatever it is. Like that's how I imagine Child's Play the musical.
I was gonna say
trademark that. Nobody steal that.
Yeah.
Copyright.
I honestly for my class I should have done Child's Play. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done Father of the Bride. I should have done Child's Play.
That's fine. Don't you take the class again, like another level of it?
Next time.
Next time,
Yeah.
I'll just do Child's Play next time.
Just do
Oh man, that
Child's
would have been
Play.
so good. Damn,
That
my
is
whole life is ruined.
excellent.
That could be a
And
side
we need more
project.
baritone roles. So
That's true.
yes,
Hell yeah. Bring back the Broadway baritone.
bring back the Broadway baritones. Absolutely. Obsessed. All right, so should we Rotten Tomatin this?
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Yes, let's
Let's do
do some Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, so what do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes? I am asking you to guess the critic score. So I want you to guess the critic score for this. We're gonna do Rotten Tomatoes first. We'll go around with that one, and then we'll stop, and then we'll go through the letterbox scores. So first, we're gonna do Rotten Tomatoes. Bree, you have the choice. You can go first or last for Rotten Tomatoes, but then you will go the opposite of that for.
I'll go
Letterboxd.
first, I guess. I'm trying to think because I feel like it was well received when it came out. So I'm gonna go with like 80%.
Excellent. Nikisha.
Ugh. I'm gonna say 74.
All right. Jamie.
I'm gonna guess 77.
All right. This has a 74. Nikisha cheated.
Hey,
I did not cheat.
Okay.
Amazing.
Oh, that's amazing.
In a surprising twist, the audience score is a 65%.
That's
A little bit lower.
wild.
But the critics' consensus, which is always punny, Child's Play occasionally stumbles across its tonal tightrope of comedy and horror, but its genuinely creepy monster and some deft direction by Tom Holland makes this chiller stand out on the shelf.
Nice.
Well,
Is
that's
it?
my
Yes.
Yeah.
Tomatoes.
Is it certified
tomatoes.
fresh? Or no? Okay.
Yeah. 74 is certified fresh. I think 60
That sounds
is the cutoff.
Oh,
I think.
That's still
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, 74. Excellent news.
Hmm.
All right. Next up, we have the Letterbox score. As a reminder to our listeners, if you're not on Letterbox, not sponsored, the scores are decimal points from between 0 and 5. So Jamie, why don't you start with the Child's Play Letterbox score? What you think it is?
Sure. My guess is 3.4.
Okay, Nikisha.
I'm gonna go higher. 3.7.
3 point. You said 3.4, right, Jamie? Okay, I'll say 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 3.3.
Okay.
And as always, we need to do the 3 most popular reviews.
Also, nice shirt. Speaking of Letterbox.
Right.
That's
That's
awesome.
right. My new horror letterbox shirt.
Yes.
Instagram ads got me, so I guess I should go fuck myself. But love it.
That's great.
I got got.
Great
This
too.
is Target.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we didn't.
For
Yeah,
the
that's
occasion.
fantastic.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, I got. But okay. In third place, we have Just Kick the Little Shit.
He's too fast.
Every time.
True.
Yeah.
He's so
Well,
fast.
true.
At number 2 most liked, we have How You Gonna Let a Dog Kill You? Push his little ass
Again,
away.
He's too strong and he's too fast.
He's strong. Yes.
And number 1 by someone named Anne-Marie Star Emoji. Not a day in my childhood life was I not terrified of this orange-haired little bitch.
That's good. I like that.
That's excellent. And very, very true. My God.
Oh, so good. Cool. Should we do the 4 S's?
Yes.
Skull, Scare, Shakes, and Suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
All right. for those of you listening for the first time or you forgot since last time, the 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We go through the skulls, which is how this movie handles mental health and human behavior, 1 through 10, 10 being the best. Same thing for scares, how scary is it? And then same thing for shakes. Is this one that you'll forget? One done, can you shake it off, essentially? And then we'll do suggestions after that. So, Jamie, why don't you start with your 4 S's?
Sure. For skulls, I'm really torn between a 5 and a 6 because I think it's more of like I'm having a hard time believing in this world where a doll is alive. But I do think I think that there's like a reasonable amount of disbelief in it being alive, and so like people are kind of reacting relatively normal. But then you have like the doctor and like other like weird things, and I'm like, I'm gonna give it a 6. I'm gonna say that's. I
was gonna say just bump it up to a 6.
Just bumping, yeah.
Yes.
For scares, so this might seem like really high, but I'm giving it a 5, and not necessarily because my recent watch scared me, but I think the dolls of it all is an underlying fear of mine. So like that is just going to get elevated
For sure.
And for shakes, I've eaten up this chain. It's getting an 8 from me. I
Nice.
like my whole experience with it has just been truly wonderful, and like I think this might be my favorite slasher chain. It's truly remarkable how much I appreciate it since watching all of them.
And like
Nice.
when we would watch this at night, like we would like watch the first, and usually Jamie is like, "Oh, we watched one movie, like we can go to sleep or whatever." Like this one was like, "No." Like we finished I think
Or no,
Curse.
the one before Cult.
we finished Curse, and she was like, "Let's go right into Cult." Like every time we'd
I was like,
finish
I
one,
need-
she'd
I
be like,
need
"We
to
got to
keep
start the
going."
next one." Oh, it's on Netflix. Okay, great. Let's watch the next one. Like,
Right.
which I was happy to do.
Yeah,
'cause
I was,
I
like,
really enjoyed these as
truly
well.
consuming this, like it was a really great binge.
Mhm.
So yeah, I really like Chucky. I'm gonna buy this doll.
I
I'm
think
gonna
you
surprise you
should.
with it, and you're gonna hate it. And
It's a great investment. It's fun.
I'm gonna be unswaddling our child, and it's a Chucky doll.
Oh.
Oh, what a great idea! Okay,
That's
thank you
a
for,
fantastic
planting
idea.
that seed.
Wait, y'all don't have any Pop Funkos of it at all?
Yeah,
I
behind
do.
Jamie.
It's all the way in the back.
Oh,
Here,
oh.
I'll get it.
Okay.
That's the only one we have.
Something.
I think he's from Child's Play 2, right? That one's
Oh,
from
that's
Child's
so
Play
cute.
2.
I love that.
Oh, work.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes. Obsessed.
Sure.
Brie, you want to go next?
So for skulls, I kind of agree a lot with what Jamie said. I think in terms of like the human behavior part, I think like the movie itself is obviously a very like unrealistic premise, so it's hard to gauge like how people would react to this type of thing happening. But I think for the most part, I would say I would probably give it about a 6 as well. As far as scares, like I think for me, I guess I've seen this so many times now. I'm so like used to it. I don't get as scared as I used to get. That being said, I do think like the first couple movies in this franchise are a lot scarier than Chucky gets later, because in the later sequels he's a lot more like silly and just kind of slapstick almost, and just really goofy and not trying to be as scary. So overall, for as far as scary, I would say for me it's like about a 5. Sometimes it just depends too. If I haven't seen it in a while, it'll kind of creep me out a little bit. And with for the shakes, I would say for me it's a 10. This has become my second favorite horror franchise after Scream. Like it's become a very important part of that part of me. And I have Chucky and Tiffany on my arm, like tattooed. Yeah, kind of like cute
cool.
dolls.
Fantastic.
So like, I mean, I have a Chucky doll. I have
That's
a
awesome.
bunch of shirt. Like, it's become a really big part of me. So I would say it's a 10. Like, it's definitely stuck with me, and this whole franchise I just have grown to love a lot. So yeah.
And
Cool.
you dressed
That's
up
awesome.
as Chucky for Halloween too.
Yeah, I
think
did. I
remember
went as
seeing
Chucky
on
this year. I
TikTok.
was really excited. Yeah.
I also
Love that.
dressed up as Chucky for a stream that I did.
Oh,
And
I
just wanted
love
to-
that.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was gonna say
That
that's
wig
a
is
nice
cute,
wig.
Jamie.
It was so uncomfortable. And I also
no.
had to trim the bangs, which I realized I will never cut my own hair because I did a horrendous job. And I had to
Yeah.
straighten it. It was like a whole thing. I was like, why? What is the wig? Was not the one that I purchased on the website. So
Oh yeah, you had
just
to like
be
finesse
mindful
it.
when you're buying wigs.
Yeah, not a fan of wigs at all.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is our episode's wig warning.
Yes. Be careful out there. Also, Brie, I'm sure your kids probably think you're so cool, like all your tattoos and like your love of horror. I'm sure they're like, yeah, absolutely. Like,
I like to
how
hope so.
crazy.
Sometimes I feel very millennial around them, and I feel like they're like, oh, because they're Gen Alpha, the kids I have now. So I'm just like 2 generations removed from them
Yeah.
now.
Oh, sure.
So I'm just like, ooh, hope they don't think I'm like a loser.
Yeah.
Obsessed.
Nikisha, you want to go?
Yes. So Skulls, I gave this a 7 purely based on Andy because of his emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So that's why the number is so high. Scares, I had a 4, but I'm gonna change it to a 5 because it still freaks me out, and I will probably have a nightmare tonight about it. It's gonna be great. And Shakes, I'm gonna give it a 6 because it just holds up so well, and it made me want to watch the other one. So I will probably just copy you guys and go down the rabbit hole and
Do it.
just rewatch.
Definitely.
Do it.
Yeah, all the rest of them. Yeah, great.
6 for Skulls, same reasons. 2 for Scares, just because I have no. If I'd watched it as a little kid, like I just don't have that connection to it for fear wise.
For sure.
But Shakes, this is an 8. Like you've all said, like I mean, this is just like an excellent franchise because it just obviously you have to get on board with like the tone, but if you are on board, this thing is wildly consistent all the way through.
Yeah, it delivers,
and
for
that
sure.
is more than a lot of other franchises can attest to. And I like the Friday the 13th franchise just because it's just like all over the place, but like this one is. This franchise specifically just like it just gets it. And I, like Jamie said earlier, like I get it. I get Chucky now. I get the love for Chucky. I get all of it. What a delight. What an absolute delight.
What a little delightful little doll.
So nice.
Yeah. Put little boys in prison. So I'll go first with my suggestions. We kind of said a lot throughout this episode. Doc of Chucky, I guess Skeleton Key, we said, Candyman, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, the sixth one, the seventh, the TV show, all that. But I think I would like to suggest season 5, episode 6 of The Twilight Zone, Living Doll. That's the Talking Tina episode. Just like some of that OG doll horror, 40 minutes, a half hour, however long it is, of just like the OG killer doll haunting a family. So I'm gonna go with that one.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a movie off the top of my head. I would say though, like I know I've already said it a million times, but definitely the TV show. If you like the movies, I think it's just also it not only does it expand, it also obviously introduces like new characters and ties them into like the old like legacy characters, and then also I think that Chucky's like gets even crazier somehow, and like the kills. I mean, the 3rd season's literally set at the White House with the president of the United States. So like the show just takes it up like 10 levels, even though it feels impossible. But still manages to like carry like on the continuity from each of the films, and then also there's really nice like heartwarming stories because like the show introduces like these 3 teenagers and they all end up having like shared trauma because of Chucky, and like it's like also really beautiful relationships in that show as well too.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah. Brian, just because you mentioned a TV show, that just reminded me, it took me back to 2 TV shows. One, Family Matters, because there was a episode where Steve Urkel had a dog.
Yeah, the ventriloquist Urkel doll. Yes.
And then there's a Sabrina the Teenage Witch episode, and I'm just like aging myself so bad. But we're all millennials, it's fine. And there was a Sabrina the Teenage Witch episode where her aunt gifted her a doll. It was Molly Dolly, and that one like came to life. And that was one of their Halloween episodes. But that wasn't my original suggestion. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
The Urkel doll was from season 8, episode 7, but the Urkel doll's name was Stevel.
That's right.
Oh my god.
That's amazing. Stevel. Yeah, great. But you know, modern day Annabelle, because I do love, even though that franchise is so fucking wild, I do love Annabelle chain. And then our good friend Mithrigan.
Yeah.
Good old
Mithrigan. You took one of mine.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sorry.
Man,
what about
she's
you, Jamie?
iconic.
Besides Megan?
Yes, definitely Mithrigan. I think also just like for meta, definitely the Scream franchise. For other like ridiculous quips, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Like I just feel like it's they're all kind of in the same ethos, and those ones I really enjoy. So I feel like that it hits in the same kind of way. But yeah, definitely Mithrigan. This is like not necessarily the same thing, but there is that one. Was it Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark, where the girl slowly turns into a doll?
Are You Afraid of the Dark?
In the dollhouse. Yes.
Yeah.
That episode.
Yeah, that show was
me
scary.
as a kid. Ugh. It was so scary. I had no
me
business
either.
watching that. I don't know.
No.
Nobody batted an eyelash for me watching all these things that like truly kept me up at night.
Truly, she literally took her hand off, and it was like a doll.
Oh my god!
Like,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Still
one day
horrified as an adult.
One day we'll do every single Are You Afraid of the Dark episode.
Oh,
We
that'd be
have
so
to.
Good.
That would be really fun.
Yeah.
Streaming
I
somewhere.
want to say like
Somewhere.
yeah, I want to say that or like
Paramount?
Prime or something. Yeah, they are
Maybe.
though. I saw them the other day somewhere.
Yeah.
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 Love that. Okay, well, that wraps up our episode of Child's Play. Thank you so much, Bree, for being with us
of
for this episode. Yes, such a fun time. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Talk Horror Pod, POD, and producer Brian. Where can they listen to us?
You can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. Are you a YouTube podcast person? That you can find us there. Are you a Spotify podcast person? You can find us there. Are you an Apple podcast person? Find us there and rate and review us 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
And then Bree, remind everyone where
I'm
they can
on
find you.
TikTok and Instagram under BriHeartsHorror, and then I do have a letterbox. It's Chef Boyar Brie. Made that before I had my TikTok. I wish my name attached, but yeah, Chef Boyar Brie with an E at the end. But yeah, you can follow me on there. I always like to warn people that my letterbox reviews are very unserious. So if you want like real film criticism, it's not me. I just like to write stupid jokes, and that's it.
That's what we love to play on this or to read on this podcast. It's just
those are my favorite reviews anyway.
Oh yeah,
Right.
I don't go on to like very rarely am I on Letterboxd for the like in-depth reviews of films. I want the funny quips.
Yes.
But I did see on Letterboxd that you also enjoy one of my favorite movies ever, Vox Love.
Love that movie.
I was looking at it again because, you know, obviously I want to go on. I want to see a tour of Sky Riley and Celeste playing together, obviously. And I was on the Vox Lux, and since we're friends, I saw your review of that. I was very excited that you
it's underrated.
Absolutely. Cool. That's it. That's all I had to say.
Great. Well, that's our episode. But producer Brian, you have to end us with like one of the quotes.
Of course. Well, we all know because he said Aunt Maggie was a real bitch who deserved to die.
Yes, amazing. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.